What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another player rating show here on Back of the Net. And not a great one this morning. Watched a gutless performance last night, and we were deservedly beaten by Reading. Better team on the day, and really, really disappointing one. Scratching my head this morning, must say. Just a lack of fight, lack of determination, lack of will to win. Everything that Reading had, we didn't, and they outfought us all over the pitch. So really disappointing one, and Jason's gonna have to answer some questions now. He's gonna get critics, and I understand that. I also think these players have got to take responsibility. We all know the quality they have. They need to start showing it, because at the moment it looks like they're going through emotions and just expecting to win games. And there's a lot to be said for that desire, that will to win, and that fight. And yeah, really tough time at the moment. And let's hope we bounce back. But I've got a guest with me today who I'm sure a lot of you will recognise from the free-for-alls and on Twitter and things like that, to help me go through the ratings. We've got John. John, you've slept on it. What are your thoughts this morning, mate?
I'm doing as much as I can to bring myself back to remembering what it's like to be positive supporting AFCB. I've got my hat there. I'm sipping a coffee from a Bournemouth mug.
Doing all you can, mate.
Yeah, doing everything I can to try and stay positive, to be honest, even if it's surface level. Wasn't great, and I'm sure we'll get into it as this goes on. But we've just got to look forward to the next match as much as possible and move on from this one as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's all we can do, and it's kind of, I almost think it's a good thing that we've got a game in the week. You don't want to be dwelling on a performance and result like that for too long. So hopefully we can bounce back quickly. I normally start these by going, well, at least we can start on a positive, because we've got Mr. Consistent Asmir Begovic. But even he, I mean, if anyone's allowed to make an error the season he's had, but he was at fault for the second. What did you make of him?
Yeah, the only real thing that he had much to do apart from pick the ball out of the net was make sure he put that second ball, the second goal, make sure he parried that wide. And it's weird. It's because they showed it on enough replays, sort of the angle that it came at him from. And as much as I felt Andy Hinchcliffe, the co-coms on Sky, was a little bit made a few odd statements during the game. The one thing I think he did say absolutely correct is Begovic only needed to take maybe half a step to the right and he could have picked that up. And I think he just saw it coming and made the decision early to go down. And it was too close to him, so he couldn't get the force to push it wide. And it dropped straight to the young centre-back who had it was the centre-back, wasn't it? The young centre-back.
McIntyre, yeah.
Who had a great game as well. And just poke it in the net from there. So that was pretty much all he had to do, because I had a look at the stats. Reading had 9 shots on target, but I can't remember him having to make a save, really.
No.
Nothing that wasn't straight at him. Everything else that came to him was straight at him. So the only thing that you'd expect him to do from the game was to prevent that second goal, which he didn't do. And other than that, he didn't make a mistake with his feet like he did against Crawley, at least. And even then, his ability got him out of that one. So it's even when your most consistent performer's not pulling off what you'd expect him to do, it's kind of writing on the wall that the game's not going to turn out well.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was a weird one. I agree with what you're saying, and with Hinchcliffe on the commentary as well. It was a weird one, and you've probably got it bang on there that he almost made the decision too early, because when it come in, you think, well, why is he doesn't need to dive for that. It's too close to him. But like you say, that's the theory I've got behind it, is he almost made his mind up, and then he was, not in the best position. But listen, he's Mr. Reliable. He made one error in the game, and unfortunately, if you're a keeper and you do that, it goes in the back of the net. I mean, how many errors all the players on the pitch made during the game was more than one. So what we're doing for a rating, it's a difficult one, isn't it? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I was going to go with 4, but then I thought, well, he did at least pull off everything else. So I'm going to go with a 5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Like you say, it's only one error at the end of the day in the grand scheme of things on the performance last night. He probably doesn't deserve to be one of the lowest rated. So, we went back to a back 4, everyone's delight. And on that right side, Jack Stacey got the nod, which is fair enough at the moment. I think he's definitely ahead of Smithy. And I don't know about his performance last night, but I think at the moment where I'm looking at players that I can trust and I feel reliable, I do feel like Jack Stacey is one of them. Having said that, what did you make of his performance last night?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it on the free-for-all. I felt as though Stacey, in terms of effort and effort
Yeah.
put into the match, I felt he came out with credit, as opposed to a lot of other players, because he never stopped running. And I feel as though there was a little bit of an extra reason for him to make sure that he worked hard, because he obviously came through the Reading Academy. So if there's any game you want to show what you can do, it's going to be against the team that let you go, essentially. So I really don't think he stopped running. In the entire game, he was really providing overlaps for Brooks. He was doing the same thing when King was on that side. He wasn't as good. Well, to be honest, not many of them were that good on the ball outside of maybe a couple of players. But I felt I really couldn't fault his effort the whole game. And a couple of crosses, well, one in particular I can think of, crosses that he put in that really should have had someone on the end of it. There was one or two really, really good crosses. And, when I looked through his stats, unfortunately, it says for him 4 crosses, none completed. But that doesn't tell you when there should have been a man there on the end of it to nod the ball in the back of the net. Yeah. So, I mean, apart from, like I said, maybe a cross or two and the effort he put in, not much stood out to me about his game. And I feel as though the attacks, the dangerous attacks that Reading were putting in, they were coming from our left. They weren't coming from our right. Not that I can remember. So, that tells me a lot that certainly Stacey performed well enough on that side defensively.
Yeah, and I think, like you say as well, I think it was, I can't remember if it was the last league game or the one before, where he put an early cross in and Dom should have done better. And that's the thing. It's like, if people have got on the end of his crosses, he's had a worldie. Do you know what I mean? Stats are like that, like you say, 4 crosses, but they weren't awful crosses. And I feel like even when we have a poor game and everyone's below par, he's pretty consistent, and he's someone I can put my hat on. Do you know what I mean? And think he'll be solid enough. So it's difficult to give anyone too high on last night. If anyone's going to get a bit of credit, like you say, it's probably Jack. Yeah. What we going for here, mate?
I sort of wobbled on this one, but I went with a 7 in the end.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I would have said he can't get any lower than the 6, and he can't get any higher than the 7. So I would have flirted between the two. So I think that's fair enough, because I think when you have a performance where we're really disappointed with the kind of the basics, the work ethic, do you know what I mean, the desire, he did do all that. So, when players are having an off game, I just want to see that's the bare minimum, and I feel like Jack always gives that. So, credit where it's due for that. In terms of the centre halves, I don't know about you, but this is my personal favourite pairing. I was quite happy to see these two in there. Meps come back into the team. I'm a big fan, but last night, one a good one for him, really.
Mepham really frustrated me, certainly at the start of this game. I didn't understand why he came on at half-time in the last league match, or was it against Crawley? It was the last
league game, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, he came on at half-time for Carter Vickers, and one of the first things he did was completely misjudge the flight of the ball. And that was literally the first thing he did in this game. The long ball, and he completely misjudged the flight. And after that, it was every time the ball seemed to be with him in space. It was weird. It was like the opposite of what Pearson said in the pressing game, when he was told everyone to make sure Cook had the ball. It seemed like they were happy to let Mepham have the ball, because we'd pass it a bit and then it'd fall to him. He'd look up and try a long ball, and they never came off. One came off in about the 87th minute to King, but apart from that, every long ball he tried just seemed to miss the target, go far wide. He got himself into the game eventually with sensible passing and whatnot. But then I also look at the first goal, and it's a little bit harsh, because he's probably the third person to not make the most of the position he's in that situation, because certainly King doesn't quite clear it. There's someone else. I don't have to look back on the goal, because I think there's 2 or 3 players before it even hits Mepham that don't clear that ball properly. It falls to him, and he bounces down. He doesn't know where it is, and it's an easy prod in the back of the net. And it's a little bit harsh to. I don't blame entirely him for that first goal, but he's one of a few players that don't quite do their job. And to be fair, after that, I'm struggling to think of a situation where he doesn't necessarily do his job in terms of making sure that the ball doesn't doesn't stay out the back of the net and whatnot, because it wasn't the third goal wasn't on his side. The third goal was Cook and Rico that should have dealt with that. He comes across and almost puts in a last-ditch tackle, doesn't quite get there. So, yeah, just right at the start, up to the first goal, and going with so many long passes, I was disappointed with the start. And then I suppose he just settled into the game, and I don't really remember him doing anything after that.
Yes, it's difficult because I feel personally that recently we've almost missed Meps, and I felt, and that's a worry when you think you miss Meps, then he comes in and you think, oh god, that didn't help. But I'm a big fan. I like the way he normally, obviously this is not on last night, I like the way we, as a defensive unit, I feel like he brings us up the pitch a bit better than the other centre halves. Having said that, there's a case to be made that Lloyd Kelly and Carter Vickers are perhaps better defenders, maybe, but having said that, I was really happy with the defensive pairing, and then that first half hour, as a unit, they were all over the show, and it wasn't a good one for him. He's only just come back, so I'll give a little bit of allowances, and like you say, he settled into the game, but we're gonna have to go low for him. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think just because of that poor passing at the start and that misjudge the flight of the ball, which really annoyed me. His role in the first goal and the fact he didn't really make up for it in terms of anything else, I went with a 4.
Yeah, that's what I'm literally hovering over the 4 because that's what I was expecting. I think that's a fair one, to be honest with you. I can't argue with that. And next to him is, Mr. Reliable, really. Obviously the skipper, and the fact is he's someone that we know we're always going to get. A proper leader's performance in the sense of, put body on the line and things like that. But for me, from a technical side of it and the way him and Mepham performed, he struggled, especially like they all did, but especially in that opening half an hour. And it was a difficult one for Cookie. Nothing seemed to go right. But what did you think of him last night?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled to criticise Steve Cook too much most times. As I saw a few comments on Twitter about Steve Cook not being a leader or not being enough of a leader, and I just think there's too many instant reactions in terms of I'm trying to find someone to blame, because at the end of the day, Steve Cook has been rock solid at the back for so many games that if you're going to pick 1 or 2 out of 100, you're going to find eventually a poor performance from Steve Cook. But even then, what was that point that he was, he went down injured. It looked like he was going to be taken off to me. And then, he recovers and he goes through the pain or whatever and just keeps going. And, I'm sure he would have, that everyone around him would have been able to hear him shouting at the team to just, for whatever he can help try and make them improve in any way. But there's only so much one man can do. And unfortunately, he did get his, he did get himself into a bad position for the third goal, which, is a combination of his and Rico's fault. But, he was the one that fell over, and it makes it look a lot worse for him. And, again, it's just I'm not sure that he really made too many bad mistakes, but he wasn't exactly helping. He wasn't necessarily pushing us forward. It's the common symptom that we've got at the moment of we keep the ball at the back so much that nothing happens going forward. And he's unfortunately a part of that, but it's the rest of the team that don't support him going forward in that regard. But
I did feel as well, I don't know about you, but I felt that sometimes it almost felt like, we'll come on to him in a minute, but that he didn't trust Rico, and that was potentially stopping him from coming forward a little bit much. He looked like he was wary, because Diego was having a shocker, and but it's a difficult one because Cookie will know he didn't have a great game, but even a below par, not his best performance, Steve Cook, he was still nowhere near one of the worst, and that says it all. And it was only the other day, wasn't it, when I think it was the last league game, where he looked like he was the only player driving us on and trying to get something out of the game. So, like you say, it's a bit knee-jerk reactions. Difficult to criticise him too much, but
I think it was against Derby, so was trying to turn into Franz Beckenbauer, driving the ball forward with what he was doing. But for rating, again, yes, he made a mistake on the third goal. It wasn't all his fault on that one, and I can't remember him making any other mistakes other than that. So I'm going to go with a 5.
Yeah, that's what I'm hovering over again. Spot on. Yeah, I would agree with that. And you can still, at the end of the day, apart from the goalkeeper Begovic, I think he's the first name on the team sheet, regardless. Steve Cook. So Yeah, one a great performance, but no one was. And the next one is Diego. I went for a spell when he first come in the club, thinking I always give people a chance, but I thought, how have we signed this bloke? And then I went for a stage of loving him and thinking, fair play to him. He's proper turned it round. And now I'm thinking, what is he? He's all over the place. I mean, if there was ever a certainty last night, it was that he was coming off half time, because he was atrocious. And I really feel for him, but I don't know what's happening with Diego at the moment. He's not getting forward. Defensively looks all over the place, and that certainly didn't help Cookie last night, did it? But yeah, what did you think?
Yeah, defensively was the worry last night, just as much as it was going forward. Even if his passing wasn't up to any standard either. The thing that I would say that I like about having Rico on the left is that when he gets the ball, because he's left-footed, he receives it turning forward, because he receives it on his favoured foot and he's automatically facing forward. So at that point, he looks up and he plays a forward ball. As what so frustrates me about having Smith on that side is that he takes it on his right foot. So he's immediately turning inside and backwards. And his first thought is play it sideways or backwards. So I like that Rico always tries to play it forward, even if probably 1 in every 3 will actually get to the player that he's trying to pass it forward to. At least he tries. At least he's progressive in that regard. But the issue there is that when those passes aren't coming off, he's losing the ball all the time, and it looks horrible. And then defensively, I mean, it's just the thing that sort of really stood out to me was the amount of times that he would push forward onto the right winger, who maybe was a bit short, and you don't know with one of the central midfielders or the right back bombing on past him. So at that point, that person's completely free in open space. So Rico has to jump back to get on that man that's now in the position he should be marking, but he doesn't get to the man. He gets about halfway and he tries to cut off the passing lane. And I think he's done that ever since he's been at the club, which is why his interceptions has always been so high. Because that's the one thing you can say about Rico. He gets a lot of interceptions. But that's because of where he stands, trying to block passes rather than trying to mark the man. And when he gets in the positions that he did in that game, it was so easy to get around him. He consistently found himself out of position. And then for the third goal, it's just not good enough. I mean, it's what Lucas João did for that third goal. You can see the way he received the ball. Rico just bounced off him.
Yeah.
And it was just like hanging on his back like a cape, and then he just shrugged him off, and then that was it. Rico wasn't there anymore. And for that to happen, to allow a player of Lucas João's ability and strength to be in that spot when we're already 2-0 down, I mean, it was the death knell for him in that game, for him to immediately be taken off at half time.
I agree with you as well. I think that a thing with Diego that frustrates me is positionally sometimes. I do think he gets caught out. He's almost trying to cheat a little bit with his positions, and if it doesn't work, then he's in trouble. But I agree with what you're saying. The thing is, because Smithy's had a lot of criticism lately, and I understand it. He's not been on form. But I feel like Rico's getting in the team because he's left-footed. And that's literally it, because he offers that balance. Because I totally agree. Because even last night, I'm thinking, especially with Lloyd out, you think, well, you've got to play Diego, because I'd rather that, because like you say, the balance is all over the shot if Smithy has to play there. So, but that's literally the only thing that's getting him in the team at the moment. But yeah, I mean, I'm hovering over a number. Let's see if you get it bang on again.
The way I've been talking, I won't even go lower, to be honest. But at the moment, I'm going with 3. But I could have gone with 2, to be honest. But we'll go with 3.
Yeah, tempting, isn't it? But I agree. I've gone for 3. I think if he had performed like that over 90 minutes, he probably would have justified a 2. I think the fact that it was only the first half kind of meant that he didn't get lower. But yeah, I think that's fair. Moving into the midfield, and like I said, it was a kind of a 4-3-3 system, and someone that's been really reliable, Lewis Cook. I think the last few games he's been really under par. He's still a player that is definitely on the team sheet. We know what he offers, but it's really not happening for him at the moment. I don't think he was literally running games for us when we were in that good spell, but not quite happening for Lewis at the moment. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, you've only got to look at that poor pack pass to Begovic that almost resulted in another goal. That to just look at sort of the level that he seems to be at the moment. It's a difficult one to sort of say exactly what's going on with regards to Lewis right now, because I've got his stats up here. His accurate passing is still 91%. He's still made 52 out of 57 passes, but like it seems to, I think it's also partly the amount of times he's been dispossessed recently. The fact that his touches just aren't solid. It's a lot of his touches just seem to be just not quite keeping the ball at his feet to the same extent that they were earlier in the season. And then I feel as though maybe it's the players around him not necessarily being on form and the formation of the three further forward that means that when he looks up and wants to pass the ball forward, the options aren't necessarily there at the moment. I think is partly the reason why we're not seeing that progressive passing that we're used to seeing from Lewis Cook. And I think he might be suffering from what a lot of the teams are suffering from. It's just a lack of confidence.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. I think he's lost his kind of, like you say, I don't think his performance has been shocking, but and like you say there, that stat didn't really surprise me because he is still doing that. It's just that influence on the game has just gone down. It really has gone down. Like you say, it's definitely to do with the other players around him, but he's got to take responsibility as well. I do feel like he looks like a player who's getting really frustrated when things aren't coming off.
Oh yeah, I mean that like the amount of times. That's partly why I'm sort of hovering on my position on his ratings because of the amount of times that I've seen in this game, in the Crawley game, and in the Derby game, where a player hasn't made the right touch, hasn't made the pass, hasn't put in the effort, or for some reason, and you can hear Lewis through the mics shouting his head off in frustration. But which is good to see, which is nice to hear that he really wants this and he wants to be involved. He wants things to happen. But as soon as he shouts like that, he stops. But the play's still going on around him, and he's found himself out of position in those instances, and that's not good. Frustration and showing your frustration is good if it forces you to get everyone going and it forces you and you keep going while you're in it. But if you stop to shout at someone and the ball's gone past you, I don't like that. And that's not good to see. That's not good for mentality, and it's certainly not going to help the team. So it's like that I want to see him sort of like cut down a bit out of his game. Like when the ball's gone out of play and you think, oh, I need to go tell Rico, come on, I want that pass quicker, then go do that. But don't do it in the middle of the game and shout at him because it's not going to help. And that's why I'm like sort of a bit like I know he means well, but he needs to cut that out of his game.
Yeah, I think his frustration as well. It's almost making him. He's getting so frustrated. He's taking like an extra touch because he's going, "Oh, I'll do it then," and and that's where the dispossession is coming into it. But like I said, I'm still happy with Lewis in the team, and I still feel he's still giving us all and stuff like that. But it was a poor performance. I'm not really. I'll give this to you. I'm not really sure on the rating. I'm floating between a couple. See what you go with.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to bring it lower, but I'm going to go with a 5.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. I think that's a fair shout, really. Below par, but not one of the worst. Next to him, everyone knows that he's my favourite. I love Jeff. I don't know what's happened. The last few, he doesn't look on it at all. Since he got that red card that got rescinded, really, it's weird. He's just not having that. I mean, for Jefferson Lerma in a team that looked like they're lacking fight and desire, for him to be brought off at half time and me think that's a fair sub says it all to me because I just can't believe. I mean, he's getting taken off before billing. I mean, but yeah, I'm not sure what's happening with Jeff at the moment. Every part of his game, the bitiness, the good in possession, all them things have just gone out the window at the moment. I don't know what you think.
It's a tough one, really, because I mean, when I was speaking to Kirk doing the preview that I did with him over on his channel a few weeks ago, he brought up Lerma and sort of how he just doesn't seem to be at it at the same extent, and that was a good few weeks ago as well. And even more over the last couple of games, he's virtually disappeared from matches, and that I think that's probably another confidence thing because what we were used to in the Prem was him in a midfield 2, and he would be the enforcer. He put the bitey challenges in. He'd slide in last ditch. He'd pick up the yellow if he had to. He'd do all the nasty things, and then occasionally he'd pull out a nice raking pass with the outside of his boot that would be wonderful curling ball over to the other side of the pitch, and you go, that's the side of his game that we like to see as well. And then at the beginning of this season, when it suddenly changed and Lewis Cook was the quarterback, and now he was more of a box-to-box midfielder, and that's what I thought. That suddenly I was like, no, that is actually the Jefferson Lerma that we probably should be using.
Yeah, I really liked it.
His stamina, his strength, his ability on the ball, and the fact that he's not afraid of a shot. And he scored 3 this season. That was what I really liked to see from Jefferson Lerma, because it allowed him to use all of his game. And now he's just not doing any of it, really. I mean, it was
difficult, because I don't know if he's almost being, we don't know this, but is he almost being told not to do that anymore? It feels like it's so opposite to what he was doing. It's almost like with changes of system and stuff, it's almost like he's being told to actually just sit a little bit more alongside Lewis, especially when Billing's in there. They're kind of going, let Billing go a little bit. And it's almost like he's not been told to do that, but he was doing so well at it. So I'd be surprised if we changed that. But yeah, he's certainly not been on it so far.
Yeah.
Again, another one that come off at half time fairly.
Well, I think that's part. You're right. It might partly be to do with what JT might be asking to, but I think again, it might just be due to like how confident he is at taking the ball forward. If things haven't been working out for him and he's not being given that positive reinforcement, because he seems like a player that would work well off someone always being positive with him, because obviously different players react to different things. Some people want to be told you're not good enough, and they'll go, well, I'll show you and beat it up. Whereas Jefferson Lerma seems quite like a happy, per the meme, seems like a very like needs that positive reinforcement all the time. I don't know whether he's necessarily getting it. So what I would point out is for the third goal was this combination of the Lerma and Cook. I think the whole midfield three, actually, if you see, all three are kind of not where I want them to be. Like, the ball is passed to Billing just a bit too far in front of him. He doesn't quite reach it. We lose the ball. Gets to a midfielder who passes it out, and suddenly I realise Lewis Cook isn't playing in the defensive midfield. Lerma's in that position now, and he's got 2 men on him. Lewis Cook's stuck on the right hand side. He's not on anyone. I think this was a horrible mistake by JT, because I think he made that change himself to try me attacking when we were already 2-0 down. And like, Lerma doesn't go to the ball, he blocks the man as the running option. I feel as though he's not in the state of mind to be the guy to make that enforcing tackle anymore, and just didn't make the right decision. And like, his decision making, along with a lot of midfielders, just isn't, it's just off at the moment. And a confidence and just like that reinforcement I think they need from the managers and from their players just isn't coming towards them. But anyway, for again, I was thinking maybe 5, but there's nothing really all that positive that I can say about what he did at all, and I'm more inclined to give him a 4.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's go 4, because there's, like I say, he only played the half, but there's a reason why he come off at half time, isn't there? So yeah, I think that's fair. Do you think Jeff's, quickly before we go into Billing, is Jeff I can't believe I'm saying it, but now we've signed Ben Pearson, is he in danger of losing his place?
Oh yeah.
And I can't believe that, because like we mentioned, he was Mr. Consistent, wasn't he? But
well, the thing is, it's an interesting one. Depends how JT wants to set up, because Pearson is a defensive midfielder. From what I've gathered, from what I put out on Twitter and asked the Preston fans, and say he is a defensive midfielder. He's not the box to box midfielder that we want Jeff to be. So it's interesting how he's going to change that if Pearson, especially if Pearson, I would imagine Pearson will come in straight away on Tuesday if possible.
Yeah, I'm more inclined to think we might go kind of 4-2-3-1 and kind of have Lewis and Pearson as a 2, and then just let the front 4, if you like. Do you know what I mean? Maybe a Brooks or a Junior or something in that kind of 10, and kind of have them 4 attacking players and have Lewis and Ben just sitting there. But be interested to see.
I was thinking Wilshere in that number 10 role.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But yeah, no, I that is exactly what I was thinking, because I think if he takes Jeff out and puts Pearson in, we can't play the same 4-3-3 that we did today in the terms of like Cook sitting and the other 2 bombing, the other 2 pushing forward. It would have to be Cook deep with Pearson. Yeah. And I feel as though that might provide us, considering the scare that we had with losing 3 goals in that game, even if 2 were from set pieces, which isn't really based on open play, we may see a 4-2-3-1.
I agree, because you're certainly not going to see Pearson, Lewis, Cook and Lerma is just not the right balance if you're playing a three in there. There's not enough creativity. It's not the right balance. There might be games in the last 15 minutes where you can do that to hold something. But yeah, no, it's just an interesting one. But I don't think this player will get in much. I mean, Billing's such a frustrating one because at the moment, he's been getting scapegoated a few times over the course of his career here, really. He's not someone that I think's been our worst player this season, but I feel like I'm repeating myself. I don't really know what he brings. He doesn't. We've talked about a few different roles there. He doesn't sit and break the play up. He doesn't bomb on and support Dom, for example. He doesn't score goals. He doesn't. I'm really struggling to see what he brings. And yeah, what did you think?
Well, I think in this particular game, his lack of influence was as a result of his sort of relatively lazy-looking style of how he gets about the pitch, and as much as it looks lazy at times, sometimes it is lazy. And in this particular instance, I felt as though in some games where I feel as though he has really put in the effort to close down players and to make sure that he gets involved in a game, he didn't look like, just in the same way that Jeff was non-existent. I felt as though Billing I noticed Billing, but I just didn't notice him enough for me. And in particular instances, like I mentioned it on the free-for-all because I felt as though tactically it was just odd because Jefferson and Billing weren't providing the support. Like, when King has the ball all the way on the left-hand side, Solanke stays in the middle. You need Billing to be forward to be the midpoint between the three. Yeah. And there was one particular spot in the second half where King on the left, I'm talking the second half because King was over there. Yeah. King's got two men around him, and there's a very simple option, like his only real pass is in between the two, and he can see Billing about 20 yards away with a man right next to him. And in that instance, all I want is for Billing to make a dart of about 5 yards to offer.
And demand the ball, yeah.
Yeah, to offer the ball, which allows King to make a move. It might allow Solanke to come closer, and he's only got one man on him, and he can hold the ball off on that. But he doesn't make that dart. King eventually doesn't have an option. He tries to dribble past two players and loses the ball. And he wasn't the only one that did that, but it's just that's something that I noticed that when you need someone to just get himself into a position to just make that 5 yard dash to close down a man, you're not expecting Billing to do it, which is very frustrating because there's a lot about his game that I really think like his lanky, big, provides a presence in the air in midfield when he goes up for the ball, which I've seen him do more often, I think, in the last few games. But if he can play that box-to-box player, like that's what you need in a 4-3-3. You need the middle one to be a bit deeper and be the quarterback or the ball winner, whatever you want in that role, and the other two need to get up and down the pitch. And like you didn't see that from all Billing in this game. And as much as Billing I saw more, and obviously he was in the game for 90 minutes. He didn't really provide very much. And
no, I agree. And he's technically a good footballer. I'm not denying that. I worry about how many games he makes an impact. I feel he goes through the motions without being awful. I feel like he needs to, like you say, that bit of. But are we going? I'm hovering between a couple.
Yeah, exactly. So am I. The thing is, I don't remember him making too many mistakes. To be honest, he's like as much as he wasn't very involved. I can't really put him down for anything much apart from maybe his effort, which he wouldn't be the only one. So I'd probably just give him an even 5.
Yeah, that's what I was on. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think like it would be a little bit harsh to kind of put him the same as Lerma because there's a reason why Lerma come off. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And we're going off the game itself. So it was, as I say, it was kind of that 4-3-3, and it looked like Joshy kind of started off on that right hand side, like you mentioned. He went over to the left. I don't know. I probably thought, particularly in the second half, let's be honest, first half they were all rubbish. Was he one of a little bit of a bright spark at times in the second half? Maybe. I certainly didn't think it was a player that lacked effort and desire. It didn't quite come off for him, and it looks like he's going to stay to the end of the season. But what did you think of Joshy kind of in that more wide position?
Yeah, I mean, I think JT mentioning that Josh King has said, I'm going to stick for the season. I mean, we will see because reports continue to come out about West Ham and David Moyes being very interested in bringing King in. And as much as I wouldn't be disappointed if he left because I feel as though we have enough strength in the attacking positions, like we don't have anyone else that can do what King can do when he's on his game. We just don't. And I don't think there's many players in this league that really are as good as what King can be. But as much as he often tries to do everything on his own, which I feel is a weakness to his game at times, the fact that he has the ability to means that at any point he really could, even by accident, take it past three players and whether lay it off or probably shoot a goal, he can do something. And like we saw that in the 88th minute or something, long ball from Mepham, he takes it on the chest, takes it past three players and doesn't quite get the shot off because the left back, who again had an amazing performance, got in and made that slide tackle to block it. He was a bright spark attacking. He was. I think what I would like to have seen more often, and I'm sure we'll come on to this with Solanke as well, is that towards sort of the last 5-10 minutes of the first half, I felt as though King was the number 9 and Solanke was playing as a number 10. Like King came very, very narrow and was looking to be more involved in the game rather than sticking on the right-hand side. And he was more involved in that regard. But again, there's one or two bright sparks, like you said, that sort of like looked like he might provide something, but wasn't able to really put anything too meaningful together. And he will be very, if he's still here for the rest of the season, I'll fully be behind him. And he may well end up as one of the first names on the team sheet because of how good he can be. But in this game, he was just caught in the mellow of everyone else's performance. And
I think if he were to like we say, if for argument's sake, if he stays, I think once the window closes, we might see a better. I think at the moment that's bound to be on your head a little bit. What's going on, and when the window closes, if he's still here, we might see it. But like I say, you got it bang on. Really, he's a different type of player we've got who will take on a man, be a bit selfish sometimes, and sometimes need that. And if he stays with us, he'll get a few goals for us. And I certainly didn't think he was someone that looked like a player that wants to leave particularly. He wasn't one of our worst players. Hovering between 2 again. Go on.
Yeah, I'll go with 6.
Yeah, I was thinking 5 or 6. So I think he was probably one of the better ones, so to speak.
I think you're right. I think the thing that's most impressive for me, or most important for me, I think, about when seeing Josh King out there, is he doesn't look like he doesn't want to play.
No, exactly. He looks like someone now that's kind of thinking, whatever happens, if I'm on the pitch, I want to play football and I'll do my best. And
this isn't going to be quite the repeat that we had with Fraser, I think.
Yeah.
Because we know Fraser Fraser didn't look like he wanted to be out on that pitch, basically all season. Whereas Josh King, when he comes on, he looks like, no, I want to play. I want to score a goal. Because he hasn't scored for us in the league this season, has he? Has he?
No, only in the cup. Only in the cup.
So, that looks
and even in the cup games where he's come off, he looks frustrated to be subbed. Yeah. I like that. He wants to be playing. Bang on. On the other side was Arnie, who is someone that, a bit like what we're saying about Josh, who's not afraid to take someone on, which I like about him. I like that he's quite direct and wants to take people on. He's had a hamstring injury, which he hadn't played, obviously come back for the last game, but give him a bit of justification for that. Brought off at half-time, thought he might stay on a little bit. We don't know if it was fitness as well. Still, he was frustrating me a little bit, but early signs were I was quite liking the fact that we've got someone who's running at people again. What did you think of Arnie?
Yeah, I mean, Arnie sort of like there's moments where you worry about sort of what he's going to do, but I suppose that's also sort of what makes him so exciting, is that you really just don't know what he's necessarily going to pull off in any one moment. He's got so many tricks in his locker, in how he's going to get past a man, and that's what does really please me about him coming back, is that when, particularly today, when we didn't put one ball over the top for someone to run onto, the only way, if you're not going to send the pass beyond the back line, then the player has to dribble beyond the back line. And Arnie's capable of doing that. He really could have, and a couple of times he did, but he often got double teamed, which meant that he couldn't necessarily do as much as he wanted to. I'm a little bit, this is a personal opinion on his usage in the last couple of league games. I don't know why he started. I do not understand why a player like Arnie, who will benefits so much from coming on into a game, even with half an hour to go, against tired players.
Yeah, true. Good point.
Will tear them apart. Why are you starting him when you know he's not at full fitness yet, and he's not necessarily fully up to speed? Now, you could see in flashes what he can do, and that really, like, you know, he wouldn't have come in and he might not be match fit, but I think he is fully fit. But the fact that he's not match fit just makes me think, like, a player with that kind of ability and the weapon that you have in him, when you need a goal near the end and he's not on the pitch, like, you're massively losing out. And it's not like we don't have other players, even if Brooks is out of form, and we'll get onto Brooks, how, you know, he improved today. But I don't know why he started. I just don't know why you're starting him when he's such a weapon later in the game. And bringing him off at half-time,
I felt that was more probably because he had to make the changes. He thought, Arnie's going to have to, he's only got an hour in him anyway.
Yeah.
And I think, and I agree with your point. I kind of thought if that's the case, Arnie's the type of player last half hour. I'd rather start Brooksy and try and open things up and be a bit clever at the start of the game. And if we need that, like you say, that pace on, you know, it's going to, if you're a fullback and you're getting into the game, you've had a good hour and then Arnie's coming on to run it, yeah, tough. Exactly. Even though we come off at half time, I felt he tried to do his bit without being successful. So I wouldn't be too harsh. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 5.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
It's just middle of the road. Like, tried a lot, didn't necessarily come off all that much, and did, you know, at least you know, he was responsible for us getting our first shot on target within 45 minutes. So
that's a good point.
Something at least.
Dom up top, I think for me personally, it's a combination of he's not on it at the moment, but equally we're not. He's feeding off scraps a lot of the time. I don't think we're getting people close enough to him. Equally, he's definitely not quite on it. His touch isn't quite there. It's not quite happening for him. But what did you think of Dom last night anyway?
Yeah, I think you said it absolutely right. There's just no one supporting him enough in the way that in the formation that we started in particular. Like, it's. I went on a little rant about it on Back of the Net. I just feel like when you've got a lone striker like Solanke, I mean, because what we saw towards the end of that first half, when he went on a run about 30 yards through the middle of the pitch with one little trick to get past another man, won the free kick to get us forward. It's like he's got that ability on the ball, so you want to get it to him so that he's either got a little bit of space to start running into, or at least make it so that it's not all that hard for him to get the ball and keep it. Because, like I said, last night, when you get the ball to his feet, but he's got a man that's going to beat it to him if he just stands there, he has to come towards the ball, which instantly means the touch has got to be even more perfect. And admittedly, he's got it in him, but his touch isn't really at it at the moment. So you're not helping him there. And with no one else around him, even if he's got the ball at his feet, he's got no one to give it to. Like, what you want there is Billing on one side and Lerma on the other as options for first-time passers. But they're not there because they don't have the confidence. It's not instilled in them that as soon as Lewis Cook makes the pass forward, you run. And that means Solanke doesn't have anyone to support him. And then we're firing long balls to him, which Mepham was responsible for a lot in the first half an hour. And he's not going to win those all the time, even if he does. Danjuma's stuck on one wing, King's stuck on the other, or Brooks is wide. No one's near enough to win the second ball. There's nothing we're doing that is helping him.
No, he needs someone closer to him, in my opinion, whether that be Josh or whether that be Surridge.
I think someone like either Surridge or him and Danjuma in a 2. Because him and Danjuma in a 2, I felt really what those two actually I think had a combination going, and that's died away now. But just it's really frustrating. At the same time, he did have a couple of chances that he completely spurned. So as much as I can say that we don't help him when we do give him the chances, he ain't taking them. And he's not going to be getting to 20 goals if he keeps performing and the team keeps performing the way that we are. So it's a mixed bag, but it's certainly not all his fault, I thought.
Yeah, I agree totally. I think in the general gist of the game, I think we're not helping him. But having said that, he's still got chances in the last few, and he's really snapped at them. And he's got to take responsibility for that. So I think it's a bit of both, like we've kind of gone into there. I've got my finger on one.
I don't think it was that bad.
No, not much.
I'm gonna go with a 5.
5.
I've gone for, because I feel as though he's just, it's not all his fault, and we can do a lot more for him. And there were some moments he did well, and others he did badly. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Obviously, treble change at half time, and listen, these players were obviously a little bit better because we were. I mean, it's a difficult one now. I don't want to give them too much praise for doing well in the second half, because I've played football at a low level, and if you're 3-0 down, it's quite easy to play. No pressure, no fear. Nothing can go wrong. But yeah, Brooksy was one that I think everyone agreed could see why he was left out. He hasn't been on it lately, but different player when he come on second half.
Yeah, he really looked like he had something, something up his backside to really get going in this game. In terms of he looked like he was really putting in the effort, combining decently. A lot of the play ended up being quite similar to what was happening in the first half. It was all being played in front of Reading, and unfortunately, because he wants to cut onto his left foot, he's not going to help in that regard. But there was a lot that he did well, certainly better than what was being done in the first half. He put in certainly one really nice ball with his right foot when he did actually jinx onto his right hand side. And the one thing I will say that I was pleased with Brooks is that he actually put in some decent corners.
Yeah, he did actually. Yeah, you're right.
Our corner delivery has been shocking this season. And there were a lot of balls that we really, that one in particular where King ends up whacking the defender's head when he's on the ground. That again was because it was a good ball into the box and it was a right scramble. And that's the kind of, it brings me back to Kirk saying we don't score scrappy goals. And you got to look at the difference between their first goal and the goal we didn't score when we had it scrapping in the box, and it's like we just couldn't put it away. But that comes because it was a good ball into the box from Brooks. So there was you're right, you don't want to give him too much praise for doing better than what was possibly our worst 45 of the season. But he wasn't
involved in that 45, so
he was involved in pretty much all of the good stuff that happened in the second half. So that combined with the good deliveries makes me want to give him a 7.
That's exactly what I'm on. I think that's fair, like you say. We couldn't be much worse, but he wasn't involved in that opening 45. So you can't criticise him for the opening 45 anyway. The other one to come on, I think, like we said, it was always for me going to be Diego Rico coming off. It meant that we didn't have the balance, but Smithy, regardless of the balance, couldn't be any worse than Diego was. The thing with Smithy is I always rely on him in terms of energy, work rate, desire, things like that. He's certainly off form at the moment. I do feel for him that he's going from the right to the left to the right. Don't know who's in front of him. Yeah, it's changing for him all the time. But what do you think when he come on?
Yeah, I felt as though it was in parts. I saw more of what I want from Smithy in that second half, in terms of him actually taking the ball and running with it.
Bit braver.
Being braver on the ball, being actually wanting to take on a man and go forward. Because it's the issue, like I was mentioning earlier with Rico and him, is that when he takes the ball on that side, he wants to take it on his stronger right foot, so he's automatically more negative. But at least I saw in that game a couple of dribbles, a couple of ones taking on his man and trying to be, forward thinking. But the one thing you can't, ever worry about when Smithy's on the pitch is that he certainly puts in the effort. And he's not afraid to do as much as he can to get everything from a ref as possible. In terms of when he gets the slightest nudge, he's happy to try and buy that free kick. We didn't concede a goal, and he was certainly part of the defence that made sure that we didn't concede in the second half. And most of our good attacks came from the right hand side, really, but he was certainly involved a few times well on the left. But there's he was just an improvement on Rico for the most part. There's not really too much I can say more about Smithy. And for that 45 minutes, I've still gone with a 5.
Okay.
There wasn't really anything much more.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah, Jack Wilshere obviously coming at half time, and that was great to see. Difficult with Jack. I can understand why he was on the bench, to be fair. But made a good impact, I felt, in the second half. We know what you're going to get from Jack Wilshere. He knows what he just recycles the ball so well. And I do love him. It's just, we all know what it is with Jack Wilshere. It's all about fitness. And if you can keep him fit, he's one of the best players in the league. But that's what we got to do. We got to manage that. But it was nice to see him come on, and I thought he'd done all right when he come on.
Yeah, he did. well for what he was involved in. I mean, it's the case that I think with Jack at the moment is going to be his familiarity with how we are when we're on form, attacking wise, because it was the case, as I mentioned it for the umpteenth time already, that we were just playing everything in front of the running back line. No one was making that running behind, and with Jack's ability, and when he looks up, he needs to see that movement. As soon as he sees Solanke jinx inside, King go for that run, Danjuma, whoever it might be, you can bet on Wilshere finding that pass 7, 8, 9 times out of 10. So but no one was making that run. So there's like, every time he looked up, he just ended up having to pass it sideways or passing it to King, who bounced it back to him. Or just like, he wasn't able to be the kind of player we know he can be. And for that, he didn't do anything wrong. And it was certainly great to see, him still getting those minutes. But there's not really anything, he was good without being exceptional, because he didn't have anyone that really played to his strengths. And
I think, like you said as well in the first half with when we were talking about Arnie, that's what I could understand at the time, but I wanted Arnie on the pitch when Jack was on the pitch. Kind of what you mentioned there, that could work because of Arnie's pace as well, his raw pace. If he could just cheat a little bit, get a little bit further right, Jack's going to find you. So we obviously haven't seen that yet, but that could be something that might work quite well, I think. But like you say, Jack didn't do anything wrong, but he didn't make the impact that we wanted, because whether that was all his fault, probably not. But what are you going for?
It's interesting because it's I'm not sure between a 5 or a 6, to be honest, because
I was thinking, don't know about you, not as good as Brooks, who we gave a 7, but better than Adam Smith, who was a 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was thinking 6.
Yeah, I think out of the 3 subs, yeah. And it's Jack Wilshere.
He certainly had more of an impact than Smith did. I think that's the reason I can say behind having the 6.
Yeah, and there was the one more kind of later in the game for Billing, I think it was. Junior come on. It was quite late in the game. Obviously, it was difficult for him. He come on and scored a nice free kick. So good to see him back. And I think Junior's the type of player that I've always felt that even when I think, Junior's not having a good game, he'll pop up with a goal. He'll pop up with an assist. He backs it up with numbers. Junior backs it up. So he's one of them players that I'm never, even if he's off it, I always think, but I'd keep him on. Do you know what I mean? He's that sort of player because he backs it up with numbers, goals, assists. And he come on and scored a nice free kick, saw a gap in the wall. But hard to make too much comment on his performance because it was quite late. But good to see him back and done what he could when he come on, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is just summed up entirely in the Stoke game. He was shocking. He was absolutely terrible all game. It was worst performance of the season by a mile. And then he scored the winner. It's just like it's so weird because when I remember Junior Stanislas in the Championship, the one season that he was with us, and he never played, or at least when he did, he didn't do anything special from what I remember. Because and that's why he didn't play much because competition he had, and then in the Premiership he suddenly came in and was like, it still frustrated me at times. I felt is that he didn't do enough and he wasn't really providing what I thought he should, and he wanted to play centrally, but he wasn't doing enough. And then this season, it's like he's just decided, right, I'm a senior member of the squad now. I'm going to start. I'm really like I'm going to do everything for us now. And it's that when everyone else isn't on form, I'll make it happen. And when Arnie was popping up with goals, match-winning goals in the first quarter of the season, and then he got injured. Then it was Junior, and Junior, the second quarter of the season, just if no matter what happened, you could bet on Junior being able to do something. And funnily enough, he comes on in this game, he gets very, very, very lucky when Joao just decides to wander out.
He knew he was going to do that. He knew it.
But, I'm sure he'll say that he knew he was going to do it. But he still scored. He still came on and did something. He had an impact, he
made more of an impact than anyone else, and he was on the pitch the shortest amount of time.
Which is the one thing that matters. So, I mean, apart from that, not all that much. He was very similar in impact on open play to what Jack had in terms of you saw him on the ball, you saw him look up, and nothing was there. Yeah. So it's like you said, there's not much to comment on that performance apart from scoring the free kick. But it's nice to see him back. We really could do with the player of Junior's quality back in the pitch more regularly.
Should we just chuck a 6 at him for getting the goal? But
Exactly what I was going with.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
If that had gone above or around the wall, I would have gone with a 7
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. Difficult one to really. I mean, I don't even think it deserves a man of the match, so to speak. I suppose second half performance we've seen on the ratings there. We probably said Brooksy made the best impact and tried to make things happen, which is fair enough. But people like Jack Stacey and that worked hard. But they certainly want. It's not a game where I'm going to make a big thing about making a man of the match. That's for sure. Don't think it was worthy. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll round it off by just having a little prediction. We're playing Wednesday on Tuesday. I want a prediction now from you.
Oh yeah, we are playing Wednesday on Tuesday. I was thinking you got the name wrong or something. No,
It's really hard, isn't it? I don't know about you. I'm hoping it's a horrible way to think, but the way we're playing at the moment, I'm thinking we've got two teams. We've got Wednesday and then we've got Birmingham. And they're the type of games that, like at the start of the season, even if we're not quite on it, we might have enough. And that could just almost play us into some form, just getting over the line against them two, because they're not the greatest. I'm hoping it might, but we've got to see more. I'm hoping we can have too much for Wednesday.
The thing is that I'll say about the team is what I feel as though has been an issue is, and it happened in the Premier League as well, is that apart from yesterday, we normally seem to find a certain level when we're playing against better teams. We seem to be more up for it generally against the better teams. Whereas against the lower teams, and I mean, we've seen it enough in the Cups as well over the last few years, the players just seem to think that they can turn up and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And
that's the problem. That's the problem. I think they go for the emotions.
Away when we lost, that was our first loss of the season. They just thought, no, we're on form, we'll turn up and we'll win, it'll be fine. And we lost. And it's been the case in the last few games against Luton, both games against Luton, I feel as though they felt that they could turn up and it'd be fine. Against both games against Derby. And I mean, Derby are in a false position as well, so the idea you could turn up against them and win was ridiculous. I would like to think that after that performance, and with a few players maybe having spoken some home truths to, the players will see this as a chance to put in maximum effort and really use this as a springboard to go forward. But there are no total mugs in this league. As bad as some teams have been, there are no easy games. This Sheffield Wednesday will turn up and go, we have a chance to do the double over a team that's full of Premier League players. And that's, as bad as they've been, this is still a lot of players that would easily be sold, that a lot of mid-table Premier League types would want. So it's, at the moment, to be honest, I'd love to stop the rot. Even a draw, I'd probably just go, you know what, that's something. But if we don't win, then if we don't win, we're looking like we're already out of even. We'll still have our hat in the playoff places, but by the end of today, we could be in the top 6 by goal difference. Yeah. So it's like a win. We have to win. This game was a must-win game, but it was also a must-not-lose game, and we lost it. So, we can't be sort of aiming too high now. We need to be thinking get some consistency back, make sure the effort's there. Don't play like a bunch of preschoolers, and just put in the effort that the fans want to see at the very least. Yeah,
scrappy 1-0 with a performance is.
Yeah, scrapping a 1-0 would be perfect.
Happy days.
It felt as though we had a team that could scrap their way to a 1-0 win against a team that's down the bottom of the league.
Be an interesting week because Wednesday was probably one of our poorest performances in that first defeat, like you mentioned. And then we've got Birmingham, where I think was probably one of our better performances. We played really well against Birmingham. So it'll be interesting to see how we get on. I think, we've got to try and find our way to getting 6 points at the end of the day. But it can't be much worse anyway, John. But really appreciate you coming on, mate. And hopefully I'll try and get you on when it's a bit more positive, maybe for a promotion party at the end of the season. When it's all rosy. And I'll say to you, do you remember that time you come on after Reading? It was all doom and gloom. Look at it now.
Just, be interested to see if any of the Bournemouth players watch this one as opposed to the one with Owen.
Yeah,
I
they seem
don't
to like watching it after a 5-0 win.
Any of the players we want to look at fan reactions from that game.
Nah, can't blame them. Can't blame them. But yeah, appreciate it, John. Cheers, mate. Big thanks to John there. And yeah, we've said all that needs to be said there. I think John was brilliant in his thoughts there. And yeah, we need more fight. We need more determination. We need a performance on Tuesday against Wednesday, like I say. And yeah, let me know what changes you make, what you thought of the ratings and stuff like that. But yeah, let's hope it's a bit more positive after Tuesday. But onwards and upwards, can't be much worse. But hope you have a good weekend regardless. Up cherries.